Hello and welcome to the SBK World Cup Podcast. I'm Dan Levy and I'm joined, of course, by Gary Pallister, Lee Sharpe and Tom Williams. Now, if you're looking for the best odds on the World Cup, please check out SBK, where you can get £30 in free bets simply by signing up and betting £10 as a new customer, 18 plus only, and please gamble responsibly. Now, we're going to start, guys, with, I want to talk about the favourites from the weekend, right? We've seen all of these big teams, nearly all of the big teams, play a couple of games now. And we had certain ideas after the first round. Let's see if they still hold. England, are they rubbish again? We were talking about England coming into the tournament as being a side that were in terrible form. Impressive victory, of course, against Iran in that first game, 6-2. And then a disappointing 0-0 draw with the United States. Has that dented your confidence in the Three Lions, Gary?
It wasn't a good watch, was it? After that first showing against Iran, where we saw our attacking talent come to the fore, destroyed them, 6 goals, looked really sharp, creating. All of a sudden we looked lethargic. We didn't look as fit as the American team. We didn't get on the ball. We were slow building from the back. And it was almost like all them concerns that we had going into the World Cup all came back to fruition again. I think usually Gareth tells it as it is, and I thought he was trying to paper over a few cracks at the end of the game with his remarks about how we control the game. I didn't see us controlling that game. I saw an American side that was fitter, more athletic, more dangerous than we were, and we were too slow. We were too slow building up from the back. We weren't getting the ball quick enough into midfield. And it just gave them time to set up their defence, and I thought they were excellent, America. I said after the Wales game, I thought they might cause us a few problems if they play that intensity, and if anything, they played with a little bit more than they did against Wales.
Yeah, and Lee, I mean, there was some question mark over whether Harry Kane was going to be fit. He didn't have a great performance. Do you think he looked fully fit, or was it just a bad performance?
I think he was probably fully fit. I don't think he'd have played if he wasn't fully fit. I think the whole team underperformed, and I think after Gareth Southgate came out and said, it's virtually impossible to maintain what they did against Iran throughout a tournament. I'm surprised they didn't make a few changes. I think a couple of changes, spice up the team, give it a little bit more energy, maybe a little bit of a surprise element to the Americans as well. We've got unbelievable players sat on the bench that are not getting a lot of minutes or not getting a game at all. And I think you could have just changed it up a little bit and rejuvenated everyone. I think everyone was a little bit flat after the Iran game. It is really hot as well. I think people are forgetting how hot it is and how difficult it is to play so quickly in such heat. So maybe a change of personnel might have worked. But they were a little bit flat, a little bit disappointing. But I expect them to be a lot better tomorrow.
Well, listen, speaking of tomorrow, we're going to come back. You say tomorrow, it's going to be the game, of course, on Tuesday evening. And we're going to come back to that in a second. But before we do that, I want to talk about France and Spain, because we're going to look ahead to England's game in just a minute. Tom, France with a 2-1 win over Denmark, and Mbappe with a double there as well. What do you make of France now? We've seen them play twice. Is it perhaps fair to say that they could be the favourites for this tournament, given that Brazil are going to be without Neymar for a few games as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first team to make it through to the knockout rounds. And I think looking at how they performed against Denmark, I was really strongly reminded of the way that they played at the 2018 World Cup, which they, of course, won. Just very solid defensively, very patient in possession, this real sense of control, a real sense of physical strength as well and solidity. And then when you've got a player like Kylian Mbappe who can dig you out of a hole, grab a late winner, that just makes them even more of a threat. And I think one of the big issues with regard to France prior to the tournament was all the injuries and the key players that they went into the tournament without. But you look at the players who've come in, Dayot Upamecano, who's playing alongside Rafa Varane at centre back, looks very solid. His form for Bayern Munich has been excellent. He's looked a little bit shaky when he's played for France in the past, but there's been none of that in the first 2 games of this tournament. Looks very solid. Theo Hernandez, who's taken over from his brother Lucas at left back and is a much more dynamic player. We saw that again against Denmark. He sets up Mbappe's first goal. This new look midfield too of Aurelien Chouameni and Adrien Rabiot, again, look like they've been playing alongside each other for years. Antoine Griezmann is playing in this new midfield role and looks very at home. Ousmane Dembele on the right wing I thought was exceptional in the first half, in particular against Denmark. Olivier Giroud has come in, taken over from Karim Benzema, didn't score against Denmark, but you see his link-up play with Mbappe. So yeah, I think they do look really solid. Obviously, we're recording this before Brazil's second game, so we're not sure what they're going to look like. But yeah, I think they're probably the most impressive team I've seen so far, France.
I think Mbappe, I'm right in saying, has 7 World Cup goals in 8 games. He's got 31 in 61 for France. By my reckoning, he's going to break this sort of Giroud-Henry all-time France record by the time he's 25 or 26. And he could easily chase down Klose as well as the kind of all-time World Cup goal scorer. Do you think that he could be the difference, Tom? I know it's a bit sort of easy to just talk about a star like him, but he really looks up for it. Those 2 goals he scored were just, not the typical Mbappe goals. It's not like he was even really necessarily using his pace to score them. He just looks very, very hungry, I think.
Yeah, I think the second goal in particular, the winning goal, he tends not to score too many ugly goals, Mbappe. And that was a proper striker's goal. Great movement at the back post, getting in behind the defender and Kasper Schmeichel, and just basically getting his thigh or his hip on the ball to get it over the line. Third goal of the tournament. And yeah, he's already catching up on the greats. He's 1 goal behind Messi and Maradona, having played, 1 World Cup and 2 group stage games. If and when Olivier Giroud does break that France goal scoring record, and he only needs 1 more goal to do it, he's probably not going to have that record for very long, because Mbappe does just have that. He seems to have that insatiable thirst for goals that all the great goal scorers have. And, he obviously had a fantastic World Cup in 2018, was one of the stars of that tournament, scored in the final, then had a disappointing Euro 2020. He's the guy who misses the penalty against Switzerland when France were eliminated. And he spoke afterwards about feeling that, there was a bit of a lack of support for him from, the French Football Federation, that he felt that people within France were kind of blaming him almost for the result. There have been various stories about him, throwing his toys out of the pram at PSG. So I feel like he does have a bit of a point to prove. And yeah, from what we've seen of him in this tournament so far, he seems very, very determined to leave a mark in Qatar.
All right, before we quickly turn to Wales against England, the big game, of course, coming up on Tuesday, I just want to touch on Spain. Played out a 1-1 draw with Germany on Sunday night. This was sort of billed as this opportunity for Spain to knock Germany out. It didn't transpire. And in the end, maybe some of the inexperience in this very talented but young Spain side kind of showed. Gary, do you think, maybe Spain not quite as intimidating as they first looked after that 7-0 thrashing of Costa Rica in the first game?
I'm still very impressed with Spain. It's almost like they're trying to play that kind of football Barcelona played for many years when they had Messi, Xavi and Iniesta in the POM. They're prepared to take risks. They're popping that ball about, the possession, which is important when, Sharpe mentions the heat out there. If you keep losing possession of the ball, it's very frustrating for you as a team because you do a lot of chasing. I thought they kept the ball really well and probably should have beat Germany. I just like the freedom that they seem to play with. Obviously, the great result in the first game. They got knocked back there at the end by Germany. But that we talked about a team that might not be one of the favourites that could win it. I think Spain have got a little chance of going far in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly look like a side that has the right technical level, and it's interesting you touched on the Barcelona style. I think they've got a very big contingent of Barcelona players in this squad. So you think that probably helps with the cohesion as well. Listen, let's look ahead then to the rest of the week. You've got that huge game on Tuesday, Wales against England. England favourites for this one with about a kind of 2 in 3 chance of winning, 1.4 being the latest odds on SBK. First question for you, Lee. Do you think Phil Foden's going to get a game here? Because we've talked about the fact that there was this lack of spark, what the heat was like. It does feel like for such a talented guy and a guy who has a real goal threat, he's not perhaps getting a fair look in this side.
Well, I'm hoping he gets a game. I think it's ridiculous that a player of his talent can't get on the pitch. He doesn't even get a run out as a sub. Never mind a starter. I'm not saying Raheem Sterling's a particularly bad player as such, but I would just like to see a Phil Foden in the team for excitement, for a bit of youth, for a bit of legs. I just think energy levels is the way his brain works on a football pitch. I think he would just be an addition to the team. I love Grealish as well. I love Grealish being on the pitch. I know you probably find it difficult to play them both, but I just think sometimes because of the heat and because of the intensity and the pressure of every game, it would be good to change one or two players every game just to liven things up a little bit. And I certainly think that Phil Foden should have had at least a subs appearance, if not a start at the moment. And he just can't even seem to get any minutes at all. I don't know what Gareth Southgate's thinking about him is, but I think he should get on the pitch.
Tom, would the prospect of Phil Foden being on the pitch be a scarier one for the Welsh team rather than, say, Grealish or Saka?
I mean, let's face it, whoever England put out, it's frightening because there is, a ridiculous level of attacking talent in that England squad. And I think from a Welsh perspective, the fact that England are going into this game on the back of that very underwhelming performance against the US and the questions being asked about their attacking potential and Gareth Southgate's management. I mean, obviously England need a result to qualify, but there's a bit of pressure on England as well to perform. It's bad enough knowing that we're going into this game, and England need to get something out of it without the additional worry that England will feel a need to put on a bit of a show as well. Whether it's Foden, whether it's Sterling, whether it's Saka, from a Welsh perspective, it looks pretty scary.
All right, we'll come back to the Welsh perspective. Gary, I just want to get your thoughts on this England team. I mean, they are pretty strong favourites for this game, as I said. They're about 1.42 right now on SBK, actually. But they're very much fancied to get the win. And of course, a win would take them through. In fact, they're going to go through with a draw if they get a draw. What do you expect to happen in this game? Do you think England will attack? Do you think they'll just try and sit deep? Do you think they'll try and kind of undo some of the sort of lethargy from the 0-0 with the United States and really go at Wales? How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I have no idea what Gareth is going to do. I'm with Sharpe on this one. I don't understand the Phil Foden situation when he was crying out for something different against the USA. We still didn't put him on the pitch, and I'm sitting there thinking, has he got some kind of problem? Has he got some kind of niggle that they're hiding from the press? Or I just didn't understand the logic of not putting on a kid like Phil Foden with the talent that he's got in a game that was dying to death, and he still couldn't get on the pitch. So he's always fancied Phil Foden ahead of Jack Grealish, really, and yet Jack got on before him. So yeah, listen, I think Wales have got more problems than England. I don't know how the manager goes for this game. They've got to beat England. They've got to score goals, and they're not. I mean, listen, we all know what a wonderful player Gareth Bale's been for Wales. The talisman for so long, got the penalty and scored it in the first game. But you're watching him over 90 minutes, and he looks cooked. Throwing Aaron Ramsey into the mix there as well. He's not had enough games. He's looking not match fit. I think he's got a few problems. The Welsh manager, and is it better to go into and blood young players and give them some tournament experience? It would be harsh on Gareth Bale and Ramsey for everything they've done for Welsh football, but I think looking at this as a one-off game and that little slight chance they have got of progressing, I think you would have to change the side and be more dynamic.
All right, Tom, you're the resident Welsh fan, of course. England basically qualify with a win or a draw. They could even go through with a defeat, depending on goal difference. Wales have to win. What do you think that will mean for the selection? And do you think it's possible that Bale and Ramsey are taken out of this team for this match?
No, I don't think it is. If sort of Welsh fans on Twitter were given their say, I think there's probably quite a few who put Aaron Ramsey on the bench because he was completely anonymous against Iran. And it was quite sad to see because he's been a key player for the national team for so many years, and he does have the quality to change games, but we haven't seen that at this tournament. And Gareth Bale, if you take away the penalty against the US that Gary mentioned, that he won, that he scored, he's not done a great deal either. But given that Wales have to win this match, you need your match winners on the pitch. And even though both Bale and Ramsey have underperformed at this tournament, I still feel they are the players most likely to pull something out of the bag. One of the problems that Wales have got, though, is that both of them basically require carrying through the game. So Ramsey ideally needs a couple of players alongside him in central midfield. Bale ideally needs a couple of players alongside him up front, someone to do the running, someone to do the physical work, like Kiefer Moore, for example. And it just makes it very hard to get a really solid competitive team on the pitch when you're fitting Bale and Ramsey in as well. So, my expectation is that both of them will start. I suspect Rob Page will want to bolster his midfield just to prevent Wales getting overrun in the middle of the pitch. So might that mean a switch to a back four away from the back three, back five that we've seen so far? Potentially. Joe Allen is fit again, which is good news for Wales. He came on at the end of the game against Iran. Sadly, was at fault for the opening goal, but we did see some of the calmness and composure he can bring. So I suspect he'll start. But it's a very difficult balance to strike for Wales, because ordinarily in a game like this against a leading nation, you would be very cautious. You'd kind of build from the back. But Wales have to win this game. So that striking that balance is going to be really key in terms of team selection.
I mean, you say Wales have to win. They arguably have to win well. Basically, the only way to keep it in their own hands is to beat England by 4 goals.
Yes. Yep.
And then even if they do that, I think they could probably technically beat them by 3 goals if they scored a lot of goals. But we won't get too deep into the permutations. But basically, if they just beat England 1 or 2-0, they're still looking for a draw between Iran and the USA. So, there is in many ways, this game is not in Wales' hands really at all, as you say. So let's move on to the other big game coming up on Wednesday, which is Poland against Argentina. Obviously, it's easy for us to kind of focus on Messi here, but he really did pop up in that game against Mexico with that goal. I mean, Argentina, I don't think were particularly good in this game, but he popped up with a fantastic goal. Gary, what did you make of Argentina there? Because they came into this tournament as kind of second favourites. They've dropped down a bit now to about 4th favourites. But, when you have a guy like Messi, you do always have a chance, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been like that for many. He's the man who makes it happen for Argentina. And, in a very humdrum game there the other day, he changed the course of it. A great strike into the bottom corner. And he does what Messi does and has been doing for donkey's years. So, yeah, listen, I don't think Argentina can win it. I think they've got too many problems elsewhere in the side. You can't keep just relying on a guy who's 35 to pull you out of the mire. So, yeah, I mean, how far he can take them remains to be seen. And he's always going to have them moments. But the team's not good enough to help him get to a World Cup final, I don't believe.
Yeah, Argentina have to win to be sure of going through. A draw would be enough if Mexico and Saudi Arabia also draw. As I said, they are 4th favourites right now, behind Spain, who are 3rd favourites, and then France, who are 2nd favourites. Brazil still way out in front at 3.35, France at 6.6. So, it's looking very much like Brazil are the runaway favourites. We'll see how they get on later in the day. England, for what it's worth, 5th favourites on 11. Tom, what did you make of that Argentina performance? Because it is probably Messi's last chance, and again, we're gonna fall back to another stereotype here. Sometimes the team that wins this kind of tournament does grow into it slowly, and there is a bit of that about Argentina, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very scratchy win. They only had 2 shots on target in the entire game, Argentina, and those were the shots that yielded the 2 goals. They are very dependent on Messi, and luckily for them, he was able to produce the moment of magic that they needed against Mexico. There's always a huge amount of noise around Argentina, the same way there is around Brazil. And I think particularly because this is Messi's last stand, that just increases the level of sort of focus and the level of pressure, because there's a bit of a now or never feeling to it. And I think if Argentina can sort of harness that expectation, that could yet become a positive. And I think, you looked at the explosion of joy in the stadium when Messi scored that first goal, and then the manner in which they celebrated the second goal as well. You did get a real sense of the fans being behind the team, of the team being very united. And I think if they are to get out of the group, it is going to be by scrapping. You look at Poland so far in the tournament, they're yet to concede a goal, beat Saudi Arabia despite only having, I think it was 36% of possession. And they only need a point to qualify themselves, Poland. So there's no obligation on them to come out and make themselves open and make themselves easy to play against. So I think it is going to be another sort of scratchy, gritty performance. But from what we saw in that Mexico game, I think Argentina will back themselves to replicate that sort of performance. And if they're able to do that, then that'll be them into the last 16.
Well, they're relatively short odds if you do want to back them on SBK. Argentina are currently at 1.49. So that's like a kind of 2 in 3 chance to win this game and then, of course, go through. Yeah, we'll see. Argentina certainly have a lot of talent throughout the side and particularly up front. Let's move on to the Belgian side, of course, defeated this weekend against Morocco, a 2-0 win for the Moroccan team under their new manager. And Belgium looking pretty lackluster. Again, another side that we talked about a lot, having this kind of golden generation, this last chance for many of them. And, well, you know, they will go through to the round of 16 with a victory over Croatia. But if they lose, they're out. And Croatia looking very, very strong in their 4-1 win over Canada. So what's kind of going on with Roberto Martinez's side? I want to throw that one to you, Lee, because Belgium looking like they're a bit tired and maybe just not really up for this.
They do look very tired. They look very tired, very lethargic, lacking in a few ideas, creative-wise. I know De Bruyne is obviously their main man, but everyone else looks particularly average. I think they're missing Lukaku as a centre-forward and a sort of target man up front. But they've struggled. They've really, really struggled. And I fear for that. I think, you know, Croatia, the way they started the other night, when 1-0 down early, you thought maybe they were going to start faltering as well. But they sort of come back strong, held the patience, held the nerve, and come back to beat a good side in Canada. So I think Belgium are struggling. I think Belgium could be going out.
Yeah, it's not easy for them. A draw will only be enough for them if Morocco are defeated by Canada. And Canada got their first ever World Cup goal in that defeat to Croatia. So it's not going to be easy. And even in that instance, I think they need the goal difference to go their way. So Belgium could be on the brink if they can't get past that tough-looking Croatia side. Let's move on then. Now we've sort of set the group stage world to rights for now. We're going to move on to looking sharp. Now, Lee, I know you're on your way to the England game on Tuesday night. Give us a player, and it can be an England player or from whichever side, who you would like to highlight, who's impressed you since we last spoke. Anybody who's really caught your eye in the last round of games.
Oh, in the last few rounds of games.
I mean, it wouldn't be easy if you were going to pick someone from the England side because nobody, I would imagine, caught your eye for good reasons in that game against the United States. But is there anybody who stood out to you over the weekend? In the
last game, no one impressed me. I would probably say, I think the young lad for Spain, maybe Pedri, is it? The midfielder. I think he's only 18 or 19. Very rarely gives the ball away. A lot goes through him in the Spanish midfield. Keeps his composure and keeps his cool under a lot of pressure. And he's tiny, so people do try and bully him and hustle him at the ball, but he seems to be able to deal with it all. I think he looks an incredible player.
Yeah, Pedri, of course, looked very impressive at the Euros as well. He just turned 20 on Friday, but we won't mark you down for that. And playing alongside Gavi, of course, who's only 18 himself. So they have some serious talent coming through the ranks there, of course, in that Spain midfield. Okay, Pedri, a strong pick for looking sharp. The next section of the pod, take on Pally. It's Tom against Gary. Now, I've totted up the scores because we've had 2 rounds of this already. And Tom is rubbing his hands, but he shouldn't be, because Gary has taken a 5-4 lead.
Oh, it's close, though.
Come on.
It is close.
All to play for.
I won't go through every single guess, but I will just point out where there was a win and, where one of you got it right and the other didn't. So, Gary, I think this is a bit unfair on Tom. Gary actually was right that Belgium would beat Canada. But Tom, I feel like you kind of picked Canada just for the sake of making the competition interesting. But to be fair to you, you were kind of right because they outplayed them.
They were really
good. Well, Canada didn't.
I'm counting that as a moral victory.
You can count it as a moral victory, but the point
I'm keeping a separate tally. I'm keeping a separate tally for moral victories. I'll let you know what the outcome of that is at the end of the pod.
Do let us know your completely arbitrary scoreline at the end of the competition. And then the other one was Spain against Germany. Gary had a draw and Tom had Spain to win. So Gary was right there. But Argentina, Mexico, both teams to score. Gary said yes, Tom said no. And that was, of course, a 2-0 win. So that's how we end up with a 5-4 lead for Gary, because you both got a few others right together. So next up, I've got 3 bets for you. The first one is Iran against the United States. And I want you to pick a winner for that one, or a result. It can be a draw if you want. So, Tom, you're going to go first. Iran versus USA. And obviously you have your heart very much invested in this game as a Welsh fan.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the result that Wales need from this game is a draw, because that means that, when we beat England on Tuesday, as I'm sure we will, despite having not beaten them since something like 1984, that will take us through into the knockout rounds. But I mean, Iran were really impressive against Wales, dominated the game, didn't let their heads drop. Despite the fact that they weren't able to get the breakthrough and end up, scoring the first goal in the 98th minute or whatever it was. You do get this sense of sort of, I mean, obviously the kind of wider context around the Iran team is very complicated, with the protests that are taking place there and all the rest of it. But I think that performance against Wales and that result is the sort of thing that will really kind of like bring the group together. They only need a draw against the States to qualify themselves. I think I'm right in saying that. So I think their sort of hardened edge will enable them to sort of keep the US at bay, and I think this one will finish in a draw.
Okay, draw for Tom. Gary, do you want to
just
the
in
logic
the interest of fairness,
so that your heart is satisfied?
Because I think I would maybe go for a draw, but in the interest of fairness, I'm going to go for a USA win. I think they have got...
In the interest of fairness, meaning you're going to pick the favourites?
No, I'm just saying I think it will be a draw. My gut feeling. Okay. But just to try and nick the point, if any team can win it, I think it will be the USA. So I'm going with them.
All right, USA at 2.08, which is basically evens. Draw at 3.45, Iran at 3.9. So the betting market's fancying the United States for this one, as does Gary. Next up, we've got Australia against Denmark. The bet is both teams to score. I'm going to go to you first this time, Gary. Do you think both teams will score when Australia take on Denmark?
Yeah. Oh, dear. That's a good one. Do I think both teams will score? That's a toughie.
Australia have scored in both games so far.
Yeah. No, I'm going for a no.
What results do they need? Can they qualify?
Australia getting involved there. Sharpe getting involved in mine and Tom's battle.
He's helping you think it through.
I'm just wondering what the reasons behind the game. You know what I mean? If they've not got time to qualify, then they might just play for a laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To make this fair, you have to do the same thing for Tom, Lee.
Well, I'm going for not to score. Both teams not to score.
Both teams not to score, says Gary. Okay, that's a no. Tom?
It's hard to call this because, you look at the group and, Australia go into this in a position of strength in that, a draw is basically enough for them to go through. Denmark have to win. So that obviously puts the onus on Denmark to come forward. And, from what we've seen of them so far, they're 0-0 against Tunisia, the 2 defeat against France. We knew going into the tournament that goals might be a problem for Denmark, and that has been the case so far. I'm also going to say no. I have no idea how this game is going to end up, but my gut is telling me no. Okay.
Australia will qualify with a draw unless Tunisia beat France. So they probably won't expect that, but there is that caveat. So you've gone no as well, Tom. Fine. And then the last one is Poland against Argentina, over 2.5 goals. Gary, 3 goals or more in Poland against Argentina. Lewandowski, of course, finally off the mark with his first ever World Cup goal. It meant a lot to him. Might you get some more?
There's a lot riding on the game, isn't it? You know what I mean? 3 goals or more.
I think it'll be cagey.
Or then sort of games when it's getting to desperation. I think that's when you kind of get a few goals. Do you know what? I'm going for I'm going. There will be 3 goals.
Okay.
In the game.
Okay. I think that's a bold bet.
Tom? It is a bold effort.
I'm going to say
it's going out there. I know where Tom's going with this.
Yeah, I'm going no. I think it's going to be very cagey, very scrappy. Poland haven't let any goals in so far. Argentina have struggled to create chances. It feels like a bit of a Argentina 1-0 win, late Messi penalty or something. So yeah, I'm going to go with no.
To be fair, the odds have it relatively even. It's 2.1 for over 2.5 goals, which is pretty close to evens. So producer Adam clearly doing the work here for us to make it a difficult choice. So there we go. So Tom saying no. All right. The next quiz section pits Gary against Lee. Gary also leading in this particular competition as well. Now we've got a kind of special England against Brazil edition of Who's the Sharpest Pal. 5 questions, totting up those points for later on in the tournament to see who gets the mystery prize. So the first question is, and we'll go to Lee for this first. Who played in goal alongside Lee and Gary when England played Brazil all the way back in June 1993? You were both playing against Brazil. And who was in goal for you? June 1993.
Chris Woods.
Chris Woods says Lee Sharpe. Gary?
Oh, now we had this question the other day, didn't we? And it was Tim Flowers in goal against the USA. Was he in goal against Brazil?
Oh, I don't know that.
You see, but would he have changed it for the next game, which was the Brazil game? Tim Flowers.
Tim Flowers is right.
Oh!
Gary is absolutely nailed that. To be fair, with
that unless we'd had that shout the other day.
So it is 1-0 to Gary. Okay. Next up, see how good your memory is, Gary. Do you remember the score in this match? England-Brazil, June 1993, with famously Tim Flowers in goal.
It was 1-0.
1-0, says Gary. Lee?
I think I was going to say 1-1.
You can if you want
to. Makes a bit of a boring quiz, though, doesn't it? I'll say
6-2.
Was it 1-1?
Sorry, Lee.
Definitely wasn't 6-2.
It wasn't 6-2. I'll give you that.
Can we ask who got man of the match?
You can, but I won't know the answer. So you can ask.
It wasn't me, was it?
Was it actually you, Lee?
Get away.
Oh, that's good.
I think it might have been 1-1 as well.
Made in that game against Correca.
Oh no, I can't remember the fullback, but he sent me for the best dummy. I went out for a cup of tea to get me ticket again.
All right, that would have been a good. I'm surprised Adam didn't put that in. Okay. Are you going for 1-1 or are you going for something else?
I'm going for 1-1 as well.
Okay. Well, you're both right. So 1-1 to you in this particular answer, in this particular question. Okay. Gary's still a goal up. Okay. Next up, who scored that 1 goal for England? That's to you, Lee.
Oh. Do you know? I think I know the answer. No, okay.
I have no idea. I'm going to say Ian Wright.
If in doubt, say Ian Wright is a good way to live. Gary Pallister, what's your answer?
It wasn't Andy Sinton, was it?
I mean, that's your guess, just so we're clear. You
well, obviously not, because you're laughing.
It wasn't Andy
I'm sure
Simpson.
Andy was
Tom,
on
do you
that.
know? You don't know.
Or was it Cloughie?
He scored a very famous World Cup volley, this man.
David Platt.
It was David Platt.
David Platt.
David Platt.
Couldn't even remember.
Okay.
Andy Simpson playing that game? Have we got the stats up? No?
I'm not sure, but I will look it up for next time.
Cheers, appreciate
So
that.
Gary, you're still a goal up in the
Right.
shootout. Now a question for you, Gary. Who was the Independent talking about in their match report when they said the tone was set by an inspirational second-minute intervention from Pallister, who dispossessed the charging blank? Who is that blank?
Correct. I just mentioned it before, and best tackle I've ever made. You
Lee,
look like
do you want to
lose against Pele back in whatever it was.
pick anything else?
The best tackle he's made. If that's
How
one of
much-
his highlights of his career.
You know why?
How much-
Somebody sent me on YouTube the other week. It was I don't know why it came out. They sent me the video of it, and it was correct.
Lee, are you sure you don't want to maybe punt on the guess that Gary has hallucinated all of this?
Well, I can do, but probably not. When he's been sent the video, when it's the best tackle of his career.
That's a wise move, Lee.
Unless
That's
I'm
a wise
completely
move. It
wrong.
was Correca.
Yeah.
No, it was Correca. So that's a point each for both of you. Okay. Well, this could be the tiebreaker for this particular round. Who scored for Brazil? And that one will go to you, Lee. Who scored for Brazil in this game?
Bebeto.
Gary?
Yeah, I agree.
He knows he's won this if he just agrees.
I've just random guessed that.
It was not
You
Bebeto.
said it with so much confidence. I thought he can remember that one.
I thought you were just saying it because you knew that you're a goal up, and if you have the same answer, you can't lose.
Exactly.
And the truth is, you haven't lost,
Outside the box, Dan.
but you were both wrong. It was Marcio Santos who got the goal. So David Platt and Marcio Santos in a 1-1 draw. But this one, not a draw. It is 1-0 to Gary. And it extends your lead in Who's the Sharpest Pal. So congratulations to you. Of course, we have 4 more rounds to go for that one. All right, gents. Listen, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for joining me. And to all you watching and listening at home, thanks for tuning in as well. We'll be back with another episode on Monday, the 5th of December. We'll be, of course, well into the last 16 there. So we'll be talking about those games. And who knows, perhaps looking ahead to the quarterfinals. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.